security is concerned. And we begin here in the country, the region, and entire world as well. Already you can see your guests already in studio. Hassan Olenadu from SUPKEM. Also, we do have Dr. Hassan Khanenje from Horn Institute. We're eagerly waiting for two other panelists to join us this morning to continue with the raft of issues as far as security is concerned here in Kenya, the region, and the world, as I've mentioned. So make sure you, of course, keep your eyes peeled and keep out your ears to get to know what is happening in the entire world, basically as far as security is concerned. But before we drill deeper, let's see what we have on the front pages of the dailies today. Fresh off the press, we begin with the Daily Nation, and this is what is your splash. How cruel Quack was helped back. That is what we have as the Daily Nation's splash today. He sedated his patients no matter their illness. Reckless, arrogant, and without remorse or sympathy for the poor patients he preys on, Mugo has friends not just in the quackery business but also in the Jubilee politics and among Facebook trolls. You have the story on page 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation today. And friends, indeed, Mr. Elijah Gateri Madaya, who is shown here, claims he allowed Mugo to use his trade name, Milan Health International, as well as his clinic in Kayole. The medical board said Mr. Madaya's practice is unregistered, and the hospital at which he claims to have studied human anatomy trains nurses. Mr. Madaya has a thriving business conducting stomach scans. You can follow this story, as I've mentioned, page 3 and 4 of the Daily Nation, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation today. And of course, we're going to give you a comprehensive bulletin on this as well. We shall be discussing also, the security of women as far as these quacks are concerned as well. What does it really portend, and why are they out when they're supposed to be in the slummers? Of course, continuing to perpetrate their evil. We have a cyber story here, breaches that could have leaked exams. It says security breaches are testing the administration of the ongoing national examinations, even though the Kenya National Examinations Council is adamant that no leakage has occurred. For instance, in Kisii, 17 suspects were arrested on Monday after they were found in a house next to a school compound with copies of a chemistry exam paper which was being sat at the time. And at Shamanta Academy in Kakamega County, 6 suspects were found in a room with unauthorized materials preparing to help candidates cheat. This story continues on page 2 of the Daily Nation today. If I were Kiunjuri, then you have your ellipsis there. Opinion: 33 billion shillings is reported to have been lost through crooked maize deals at the Agriculture Ministry. Columnist Jendi Kaisero argues that more will likely be lost. You can follow that on the editorial page on page 14 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's see what we have also. The front page of the Star. Patni denies being held in Zimbabwe. That is a splash that we have here. Zimbabwe police say he was briefly held for carrying millions of dollars. After years of enjoying what he calls peace and quiet, Golden Bag mastermind returns to the news. This story continues on page 4. Of course, we know right now he's Mr. Paul. And it says controversial businessman Kamlesh Patni is back in the news. According to Zimbabwean police and media reports, Patni was briefly arrested together with his aides while carrying to board a plane destined to Dubai a week ago. He was reportedly carrying millions of dollars. Zimbabwe police spokesman Charity Cheramba confirmed the arrest but declined to comment further. Yes, he was arrested but was released, she told the Star on telephone yesterday. It was not immediately clear how much Patni and his entourage were carrying at the time. But Patni, who prefers to call himself Brother Paul, denies. He told the Star in an interview in Nairobi that although he was in Zimbabwe 8 days ago, he was neither arrested nor held. This story continues on page 4 of the Star this morning. Also, 110 Kitui KCSE candidates are pregnant. Charity Ngilu's Kitui County has recorded the highest number of pregnancies among the students sitting KCSE exams. Some 72 KCSE candidates are pregnant besides the 38 candidates who delivered on Tuesday. County Education Director Salesa Adano yesterday said the number is shocking. It is sad that it could be the highest in the county, she told the Star on the phone. One student will have to resit the exam next year after she delivered through cesarean section. This story continues on page 7 of the Star this morning. Allow me to show you also what we have as a sidebar here. Party wrangles, Raila to mediate in ODM tough war between Mbadi and Secretary General Sifuna. Also, Kinduri says 62 companies blacklisted over maize scam. This is all about the NCPB scandal. We have the story tucked away on page 8 of the Star this morning. We take a keener look also on what is on the front page of the Business Daily. And this is your splash today on the front page of the Business Daily. Uhuru low-cost home buyers to wait 5 years. New rules show contributors will only have access to mortgage loans after 5 years of uninterrupted salary deductions under President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four legacy projects. Kenyans contributing to the Housing Development Fund will wait for 5 good years before accessing the money to buy homes. Newly published regulations governing the fund say contributors can use their savings as a deposit or security when negotiating for mortgages to buy their affordable houses, while low-income buyers can use the savings to negotiate tenant purchase scheme that eventually leave them as owners. You have a story on page 4 of the Business Daily. And also, EACC has 72 hours to return Kidero's property. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission yesterday suffered a setback after the High Court ordered it to release seized properties belonging to former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero within the next 72 hours. Witness stand, and we can see here Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi at the Milimani Law Courts yesterday when she testified in a case where 5 people have been charged with illegal payment of 997,926 to a firm for the supply of books that were never delivered. Also, we have a sidebar story here. M-Pesa users to send cash abroad. Telecoms operators Safaricom has inked a landmark deal that enables its 21 million M-Pesa customers to seamlessly send and receive money around the world, reflecting its acquisition of the capability to comply with stringent international money transfers rules. You can follow this story also inside the Business Daily on page 4. Sidebar, we can look at the ticker there, or on the ticker. 1-bedroom rents increase. Rent for 2-bedroom bungalows rose the slowest over the past 5 years as tenants of single-room houses absorbed the steepest rise in changes that have seen the poor suffer most. You have a story on page 5 of the Business Daily today. Also, this is a digit, 84,466. It caused traders to comply with import requirements in Kenya and push to raise 140,000 M-Pesa limit. Safaricom has called for an increase of a daily mobile transaction ceiling of 140,000, citing growing adoption of e-commerce in the country. You have a story on page 8 of the Business Daily. Also, unit trusts hit by low interest rates. Bear run, return on offer for most units trust have either fallen or remained flat this year as fund managers adjust to the lowest interest paid on government paper and bank deposits, as well as underperforming stock market. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's see what also Taifa is holding for us this morning. Most of my papers have disappeared here, so I won't be able to show you a lot of the international papers as well. But this is what Taifa is holding for you this morning. Daktari kutoka Jehanamu, upekuzi wa fichua Mugo wa Wairimu anavyodhulumu wagonjwa kwa njia za kishetani. You can follow this story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. That is your splash today. Let's see what is happening in Tanzania. And this is your splash today. The Citizen. Why newly appointment NBC boss faces a daunting task. Debarl Inea tasked with leading one of Tanzania's biggest banks back to profitability as the industry navigates a bumpy road. You have a story on page 20 of The Citizen. More info also. Lenders' rights of 11.5 billion shillings in bad debt. It says here, the bank registered a net loss of 5.56 billion shillings during the third quarter of 2018 from a net profit of 8.9 billion shillings during a similar quarter last year. An analytical look at NBC's financial results for the quarter ending September 30th, 2018 shows that the loss was largely a result of a decision to write off a total of 3.539 billion shillings in bad debts during the third quarter of 2018 from 3.365 billion shillings that was written off during a similar period in 2017. Also, limit financing of national debt, government challenge. Limit financing of national debt, government is challenged there. It's time we set a cap on repayment of a national debt. Parliament's Budget Committee yesterday asked the government to set a national debt financing ceiling and align it with domestic revenue collections. The proposal follows concerns that continuous borrowing could lead to all locally sourced funds being spent on debt servicing. Finance and Planning Minister Philip Mpango said earlier in the year that the government will spend 10 trillion shillings on debt servicing during 2018-2019 financial year. That is happening in Tanzania. And you can see also a related picture here. This is the Finance and Planning Minister Philip Mpango presenting the 2019-2020 National Development Plan in Parliament in Dodoma yesterday. Still on the front page of The Citizen, we have EU hinting at cause of standoff. The European Union has dropped a hint on what may trigger or have triggered a diplomatic standoff with Tanzania. A statement posted on the EU website on Monday suggested that the recall of its envoy was due to deterioration of human rights and rule of law in the country. And you can follow this story on page 2 of The Citizen in Tanzania. Also, MP pleads with state to purchase cashew nuts is a story that you can follow also on page 2 of The Citizen in Tanzania. Still in Tanzania, Mwananchi is up next. Mgombea urais mpinzani mwaka wa 2020 pasua kichwa, it says. You can follow that story also on page 2 of the Mwananchi if you're waking up in Tanzania. Kutokana na kuzuiwa kwa siasa za majukwani, wananchi wengi hawajapata fursa ya kuwapima wanasiasa wa upinzani ambao wanaweza kupambana na Rais Magufuli katika uchaguzi mkuu ujao. And you can find this particular faces also spread on the front page of Mwananchi that is happening in Tanzania. Right, let me try and see if I can get these other dailies for you as well. But yes, all of them actually lost. But we can continue just looking at other dailies as well. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is from, of course, from Britain. This is the paper. MPs slam pointlessly cruel benefit system. This is in the UK. Of course, universal credit imposing arbitrarily punitive penalties on people who breach rules. Warn MPs. Children at risk of becoming collateral damage when parents' payments are docked, and single parents, disabled people, and those with health problems disproportionately vulnerable. Esther McVie says self-employed will benefit from extra £1 billion for universal credit. This is happening in the UK as well. That is only the paper that I was left with. Others have disappeared, but nonetheless, at least we've gotten a snippet of what the dailies are carrying on today. I will be able to show you much later, maybe in the course of the program, if we may be able to resolve that, what other dailies are doing as well. But for now, we swing for the fences by looking at the highlights. Dr. James Mugo remains on the run as more of his victims open up. Leading Rwanda dissident defiant Diana as treason trial looms. And Turkey says Saudi team acted on orders in Khashoggi case. Now, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board confirmed that some of the equipment confiscated from quack medic James Mugo's illegal clinic is used to carry out abortions. At the same time, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board is blaming the police for failing to accompany its officers during crackdowns on illegal health facilities and personnel. Kaila residents disclosed to NTV another clinic that was used by the quack medic who remains on the run. NTV's Seth Olale starts off.
This facility in Kayole, only labeled as Ultrasound Services Hospital, is where James Mugo, alias Dr. Mugo wa Wairimu, initially carried out his illegal activity for about 3 years before moving to Milan Health International Limited. The distance between Ultrasound Services Hospital and Milan Health International Limited is less than a kilometer.
Naitwa Joyce Mengesa.
29-year-old Joyce Mengesa, a mother who operates a salon in Namavila area, is among a few residents who had an idea of who James Mugo was, given his earlier brushes with the law and the publicity around them.
Clients wenye walikuwa nakuja hapa, I used to advise them, don't go in that clinic because tunajua huyo msee. And about wasichana, most of the cases tumesikia.
Other residents had also started becoming suspicious of Mugo wa Wairimu's medical approach.
Kuna neighbor pale alikuwa 3 months pregnant na alikuwa na bleed, so akadecide kwenda to that hospital. Ati huyo daktari anamwambia mwingishe mkono. How?
Detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations headquarters Tuesday morning confiscated some material and medication believed to have been used by James Mugo while conducting abortions at Milan Health International Limited. The equipment and drugs were taken to Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Board head officers for examination and analysis. The results indeed proved that they were instruments used for procuring abortions.
When the equipment is used for, like when one has an incomplete abortion or retained product of conception.
The medics are, however, blaming the police for failing to provide security to their officers during inspections and crackdowns on quack clinics and health personnel.
Now do you go for a raid in the middle of the night, I mean at 10 o'clock at night in Kayole without police officers? You can't go.
In a letter dated 6th June 2017, KMPDB highlighted a total of 23 ongoing cases to the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, in order to ensure that the culprits are not set free due to lack of evidence or incomplete investigations. The current law, which has lenient penalties for offenders, has been cited as a key factor that enables the vice to thrive.
Our act currently proposes a penalty of 10 to 20,000 shillings and a jail sentence of about 6 months. But in our new Cap 253 Amendment Bill 2018, we are proposing 5 million shillings. So that if you are caught and you are a quack, you are not qualified, is 5 million shillings.
In the meantime, Mugo wa Wairimu is on the run with the police following potential leads that could lead to arrest of the quack doctor. James Mugo, alias Dr. Mugo wa Wairimu, was so strategic in identifying his location where he executed his missions, and the back streets of Kayole proved to be an advantage for one Mr. Mugo. Seth Olale, NTV, Kayole.
And out of the many victims who have seen the worst of fake Dr. James Mugo Ndichu, Mary Jane, whose identity we have changed to protect her, believes she has been among the strongest who have come out to expose what ills he has been doing to many Kenyan women. Though she is yet to get the justice she believes she deserves, she prays that someday he will pay for the crimes he committed against her and many more who are too afraid to speak out about it. Mary Jane spoke to Leila Mohammed and revisited the events of one Saturday afternoon in November 2014 when she sought medical services, which turned out to be a nightmare.
An advertisement on the streets of where she lived in 2014 captured Mary Jane's attention. With a bleeding problem on her mind, she was interested to call the number on the poster, and soon enough, the man on the other end of the call assured her that all she needed to do was walk in and get checked.
I needed to organize myself financially before I went there. So he told me everything is for free.
Though it was 4 years ago, her memory of the day's events remained clear. She walked in with her then boyfriend, who chose to wait for her at the reception. The first man who attended to her conducted a scan on her pelvic area and printed out the images before asking her to get into the next room where Dr. Mugo was waiting.
He told me I have a growth that needed an immediate operation. So, I was already scared.
The doctor then told Mary Jane that he needed to conduct a physical exam and remained adamant that this had to be done despite her informing him that she was on her menses. Due to the news she had just received, she was torn between the fear of the unknown and the doctor supposedly saving her life.
Family.
His screams prompted her to stay awake, and what she saw when she looked down scared her as well.
Still scared, but then I climbed on top of the bed. I was told to open my mouth. I was given around 3 to 4 tablets. So what I remember afterwards is waking up in a strange room. I've been covered by a bed sheet. I've been put on drip. What even made me start regaining my consciousness was the fact that this guy was shouting, he was yelling.
The two of them left. Her boyfriend helped her to her feet. She says after ensuring that she got home, he prepared food and told her he would be back. She has never seen him since.
I opened this bed sheet, then the first thing I noticed, outside the bed, I was on my periods. I didn't have my underpants.
On her own, she made a point to get a second medical opinion which cleared her of any growth, thus strengthening her fear that she could have been molested. But she didn't get the help she expected at Kasarani police station then. It is only after the first expose that officers there called her back to record a new one. But she chose to do so at the DCR headquarters along Kiambu Road. She says that she has been to all the hearings in the case since then and even testified in open court, but is yet to get the justice that she has been yearning for over the years. 5 years after the fact, the fake Dr. Mugo still enjoys the freedom to continue conducting his violations. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Enjoying the freedom while he should be in the slummers. This, of course, is a heart-wrenching story. And where is the security of women when it comes to healthcare and having these quacks also who are on the run as well? We are standing on guard, but is the government as well standing on guard in making sure that our Kenyan women are safe? Right, this is one to also throw it to our panelists this morning who are with us. Just give us their views of what they think about this particular expose, which was exclusively and has been exclusively running on NTV, a story by Dennis Okari. And of course, we know this harks back to 3 years ago when James Mugo came to the fore with this particular practice of his fake doctor, but he's still at large right now, and of course he has been practicing for the last 3 years. So this is quite disturbing, and we want just to throw this to our panelists this morning. We have with us Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is the former Deputy Chair of the African Union, also the Chair of the Trademark East Africa currently. Also we have Hassan Olenadu, who is the Deputy Chair of SUPKEM, and also he's the Director of Strategy and Partnerships. We do have with us as well Dr. Hassan Khanenje, who is the Director at the Horn Institute, and we do have Professor Naomi Damba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KC University and also an expert on foreign policy and defense. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Right, let's just begin with you, Dr. Hassan Khanenje. Looking at this particular story, and of course we know we've been here before, but it seems he was just left off the hook. There are cases of where everyone has the constitutional right to be bailed in certain cases as well. But Mugo is one man who is unremorseful, despite the fact that there was quite a revealing expose done on him, revealing how, of course, his callous acts are. He went full steam ahead, changed the names, use another registered business name, and of course continue with these barbaric acts that we've seen. So the question is, when people are actually going through the rigors or the due diligence of registering a company, do we go the full extent on trying to see who also are practicing? Do we even make those site visits to actually see the facilities in the first place, and who are actually people who are licensed to practice in the first place?
Debarl, this is just an example of what is increasingly wrong with our country and is a testament to the negative effects of corruption. We encourage lots of shortcuts, we encourage lots of quackiness.
Yes.
This is not the first quack doctor, so to speak, or
yes.
the last quack doctor out there. There are
yes.
plenty of them. And my fear is when citizens do not see this gentleman has been out there in the media, for the last 3 years. It's despicable they're still working scot-free. Now, when citizens do not think they can get justice through the courts of law, when citizens start losing faith in law enforcement, that is when you start getting vigilante groups, that is when you start getting mob justice, the street justice. And what we're encouraging by actually not taking action is some of the citizens out there, they're going to be taking action by themselves. And I don't think that it's a direction where the country needs to go. It's extremely sad that a man who has been recorded on camera violating and raping a victim who is half conscious, and whose evidence people have come out there, especially females, claiming that they were molested in one way or another, that he's still out there and arrogantly posting things on social media, daring his detractors to test his strength. It is extremely sad. And what I'm hoping is that this time around, he's not going to get away. And it's not just him not getting away. They should make an example out of this guy, so that other people who are thinking of doing that, they shouldn't do it. But I think the government should go further and make sure that all practicing so-called doctors or physicians or clinicians actually are certified and they have the right equipment, the right medication. Who knows what that guy is selling in that clinic, for heaven's sake? He could be selling poison. Number two, how do we even know perhaps a guy has disease that he's infected these patients? Because they're not saying, perhaps they have not even been tested. As in, we cannot allow this to continue. And we should make an example out of this guy, then go further than that. Make sure that all registered clinics, pharmacies, chemists, the people who are practicing in there, they're actually legitimate, they're certified, and they're properly trained.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Olenadu. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I think actually it is a sad situation, and when this guy was arraigned in court some 3 years ago, I think as a country we also lack a mechanism of pursuing those people who are somehow been identified as having some sort of criminal tags. And I think the prisons authorities also has to have a mechanism of the follow-ups, and that is why whenever criminals are released, you find them actually getting back to the crimes they committed before. And that is because we lack mechanisms of rehabilitating these individuals and reintegrating back to the society. Somebody just changes the place of operation. If somebody was operating in Nakuru, for example, when he's released on either on bond or the case is dismissed, that person changes the place where he operates from, and he continues with what he previously did, because he is now in the new area there, people doesn't know him. And I think it is important that certain mechanisms are also developed, that we have a follow-up mechanism for those who have been involved in issues to do with crime.
Right, but why did we remain none the wiser, even as a country, knowing that this person has such tendencies and is prone to, use women because of their vulnerabilities as well, right? You say, rightly so, that the follow-up also is a key issue that is not doggedly followed. But if we, maybe for them that do not really know who James Mugo is, this story also was done in 2013 when he really came to the fore. The Daily Nation is holding a very comprehensive coverage of this, if you may pick up the copy of the Daily Nation this morning. And it says on page 3, 4 and 5, and on page 3, that sometime in March this year, James Mugo Ndichu, who passes himself off as Dr. Mugo, was Wairimu. Dr. Mugo Wairimu, I should say, was desperate. Police were keeping a close eye on him after he was caught on tape sexually assaulting a sedated woman inside his clinic in Githurai in 2015. He needed a new cover for his predatory activities. He approached Elijah Gateri Madaya, alleged to be his friend, to help him out. Gateri is another medical practitioner of interesting pedigree. The Jubilee politician and notorious quack wanted to be allowed to use the trade name Mailan Health International and its clinic in Kayole, which Mr. Madaya told the Nation he was not using. He said he had changed jobs from treating patients to conducting mainly stomach scans. The deal presumably included using Mr. Madaya's medical license to operate the clinic. It is not quite clear what kind of treatment Mr. Madaya used to offer. In one picture on his Facebook page, he is seen in theatre scrubs emblazoned with MOH logo used in public hospitals and radiology on his chest. He says he studied human anatomy at PCEA Tumutumu Hospital. Also, there is a snippet of Mr. Mugo here, what's alleged black sheep in a gifted family. Mr. Mugo is apparently the black sheep in a gifted family. He has a pharmacy and a surgeon. He is a pharmacist, I should say, and a surgeon at a leading referral hospital for brothers. He is the fourth in a family of 6, 5 brothers and sister. He's unmarried but has a daughter from a previous relationship. He cannot stay in a marriage for a month. He only stays with a woman long enough for fun. This is what Mr. Madaya said. A relative who asked not to be identified because of a stigma associated with the quack claimed that Mr. Mugo passed KCAC with a B+. So we have a comprehensive coverage of this. But given this particular history of Mr. Mugo so far, that we do know, and they claim also he's a politician, and information which is unverified to me also claims that Mr. Mugo has been running medical camps in this country with the aid of a politician who's very known in this country. People who know this person is a quack, but they still go full steam ahead in aiding and abating this particular, crime that he's doing. Ambassador Erastus Mwancha, your comment.
Good morning, Debarl, and as you said, this is really a heart-wrenching story because it has been here before and nothing has happened. And as Hassan has said, one wonders what this means to our education, because you can see this guy claims he got a B+, but the story is even more complicated. It says he studied human anatomy in the PCA hospital. Now, what kind of education could that have been? And then it goes on, of course, as you have indicated.
Yes.
He's practicing with the support of a politician. So he has managed to rig his system through education. He is now brought in politics to enable him to practice. It is sad because how you destroy a nation, first of all, is to attack you attack education. Because the moment you destroy education, you've destroyed the nation. Then, of course, now the politics sets in that he's got a political cover. It is sad. We hope that, because medical profession is regulated, is regulated in terms of licensing, inspection, and controls. Now, how could it be that he's even able to buy some of these drugs he's using? From which clinic is he buying them? How is he procuring them? It tells you a sad story out there, and maybe there could be many more that are happening like this. And I think this is something that calls on those in the medical profession that who are responsible for regulating this industry to move in and also to ask our politicians to save the nation.
So if we may question also the regularity that we have the sting operations, maybe from the investigating or the inspectorate department of the Kenya Medical and Dentist Board, how regularly do they do this? Because if you have this clinic which has been running for this long, since 2015 up to now, it means then maybe even them, they've not really been quick off the mark in terms of making sure that they're regularly inspecting some of these clinics that we have, especially in the slums and far-flung places of Nairobi, not only just Nairobi but the entire country as well.
Precisely. And how could it have been licensed? I mean, he has even got a billboard on it.
Yes.
Very beautiful name, International Medicine, which you would suspect straight away. And so that is, it tells you of a big story out there. There is a racket. There is, an underground economy that perhaps we don't know is servicing through this Mugo, but maybe there are many more, because how could he be operating in broad daylight and nobody has been able to catch up with him?
All right, let's hear from Professor Naomi Damba.
Debarl, this story is a really continuous and fortunate event in the middle of us trying to straighten up our country, looking at healthcare and food security. Food security and healthcare go hands in hand. We cannot have a healthy country when we have this kind of things happen. And so from where I'm coming from, there are two main things. One is, yes, there are quacks, and they will always be there. There are opportunists, they will always be there. There are corrupt people, somehow they will always be there. There are two things that must happen. One is, what are what are investigative and extradition for this kind of people. How far have we gone with that? And lastly, what is the consequence of doing what this fellow is doing? And what is the consequence for those people who support this kind of behavior? And it is high time, Debarl, that we have a specialized trained drug and narcotic extradition squad that will follow this kind of situation. Let's not pretend that every healthcare is trained.
Yes.
That every healthcare is doing what they're expected to do. So someone, somehow needs to check and find out what all these people are doing, bring them to the book, lock them in, and make sure that they don't come back again and practice whatever they practice.
Right. And of course, we have this comprehensive story, as I've mentioned, inside the Daily Nation for you this morning. And it is on page 3 and page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. I've read a snippet of it actually tucked away on page 2 here. But also if you go to page 3, it says Mugo busted in new rep video. Clinic Saga Quack wanted to be an MP in Jubilee. An expose details how the fake doctor runs facility without adherence to medical regulations. And he's been doing that for quite a while now. And also the question that is maybe weighing on many Kenyans' mind or exercising their minds right now is he was arrested in 2015 accused of raping patients, but ironically he is free. And we have a psychopath who's on the run, maybe an addict, a rapist who is addicted, to raping women. This is his practice, because if he was caught on tape doing that, and now we have a new revelation, still him with the same practice. Maybe we need to assess these people when they are released. Should they go back to the society, or maybe they should be taken to some clinics for some testing? Dr. Khanenje.
This gentleman in question is a serial rapist criminal. He does not belong to the streets, actually. Those are the type of people who should be put away for a very long time until they prove they're good citizens to be reintegrated into the society. Now, I think when it comes to violations, especially against women, children, and frankly, vulnerable people, the sentences in this country, they're not harsh enough, where we don't go far enough. We should make it so harsh that even imagining of doing it, it's discouraging enough. But we've not been doing that, and that is why someone can commit a very heinous crime. They go into prison for 3 years before you realize they're out. Of course, they're going to do it again because the sentence is too easy. People such as these ones, it's not about reintegrating them into society. First of all, they have not earned their place in society. They belong to prison. You have to put them in prison and throw away the key. Perhaps until 25 years from then. By that time, probably they'll be thinking differently. But just to think that we can rehabilitate people who are not even willing to who have not learned the lessons of their mistakes, I think it's going to be a mistake. We should increase the sentences. We should make them harsher, more expensive. There has to be a cost to crime.
Cost to crime, there has to be a cost to crime. Hassan.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what should be done to eliminate this kind of practices in health, especially.
Yes.
You remember a few years ago, actually 2016, there was this strange story also of a medical superintendent in Nandi,
yes,
who was actually working in government, and I have done several successful surgeries,
yes,
only to be realized that this person was never a medical practitioner. And I still insist that it should be like any other profession, although in Kenya we are getting some challenges, because again the other week there was this guy who was also practicing law in the court for quite a while.
Yes.
I think what we need to do as a country is to have then very strict kind of monitoring mechanism, again looking at various professions, so that it eliminates, it removes some of these bad elements from the practice. Because when you have a registered name of a medical institution,
yes,
there is no guarantee that the practitioner in that particular medical institution is actually a medical practitioner, because when you just see an hospital with you don't know who are the people behind that hospital. It is important that the body that's mandated to oversee that kind of that profession should be able to have routine checkups in these facilities to ensure that the people who are practicing that particular facility are indeed the qualified people, qualified personnel who are offering the services in those facilities. That can help us in the short term. But in the long term, I agree with the Rector here that there is need of punitive kind of punishments for these kind of crimes.
Yeah. Ambassador.
Well, there's not much to add. I think it's just been said that in any society you always have this kind of vice. The question is, how do you respond? And one of the ways of responding is to make sure that you deter any attempt for anyone to do this. The worrying thing is that this guy has been arrested before, he's gone to prison, and he has come up, he's practicing. I think we need to audit the system that led to all this. Was he properly convicted to be kept away? Is there a system that must have manipulated even, the legal system, the practicing the system, that he is able back and doing business and nobody has detected him? It is very serious. And I think really we should take this as a very serious revelation as a nation and stand up against it.
Are we looking at a broken society, a broken system that we do have? Because even if you look at the front page of the Daily Nation, the sidebar story that we have about exam cheats as well, this will really go to show what you're truly saying, that breaches that could have leaked exams also, they are revealed here, and still people want to go with the leakages. Still people want to cheat. We have so many fake degrees and fake certificates in the market. We don't know who is who, how genuine you are.
Correct.
So how do we even trust? How do we maybe, as you say, have a robust auditing of a system to know who this person is? Where has he schooled? Who are his classmates? Are the papers that he actually got genuine papers? Did he buy the degrees? Because we have just people who have, credentials behind the names, but when it comes to the reality on the ground and the practice, they are none the wiser as far as the practice is concerned. Mr. Mugo is a case in point, who was actually sedating every patient, regardless of the ailment or the illness that actually they do had.
Debarl, I said before, and I'm saying it again now, we have a society that need a checkup, okay? And in some cases, major surgery. The areas of corruption, major surgery. But the issue goes back to many, much more complex issue. The question is, how do we raise our children? What kind of family setup do we have? What are the challenges that we have? Because when a little kid cheats, a little kid did not just pick up from the sky and start cheating. The little kid behavior is influenced by members of the family and by what they're watching. So there are two things here, Debarl, that must happen. One is we need a continuous enforcement checkup. There are too many clinics. What kind of drugs are they selling to this clinic? Are they certified drugs? Are they on time? Who in fact are dispensing these drugs? Are they trained to dispense that drug? That need to happen, and we need to hear outcome. Outcome is locking them in for life, like Kanenji just said. These are bad people. They're out to kill us. And so we need to lock them out of our system once and for all.
Once and for all. It reminds me, of course, of the movie Catch Me If You Can. Yes.
Yes.
Where we had Frank Abagnale Jr., acted by Leonardo DiCaprio. At one time in his, of course, even before he was 19, he was a pilot with Panama Airlines. And he was a fake pilot, but he was earning his check. He was also a medical doctor. In fact, chief of staff with the fake papers. And he was a lawyer as well in his lifetime, right? Until he was put into slumbers by the FBI. But they actually saw this person is really talented. How can we try and incorporate him into, a resourceful sort of way of earning his living, legally. And they took him to be, the forensic expert, checking out the fact checks, because he was good at making fact checks. So they use his talent actually to make fact checks. I'm not saying that actually doctors like this, like Mugo, should actually be given that spawning opportunity and chance to be them. But it highlights what sort of people that we have in the society. Many of them extremely talented because they're doing this. You mentioned this particular young man, I think in Nandi County, we can remember the story. I can't actually recollect his name, but he had been practicing, gynecology for quite a while until now, that particular case that really brought him to the fore because of, I think, a malpractice. But we are living and we are actually experiencing a sick society in Kenya right now. What should be the remedial measure? Should we stop and have a check and really, have an internal conversations among ourselves that we don't really care about your health? If it's not for my gain, then I'll go whatever measures it takes for me actually to practice what I'm doing, to earn a living. So I don't really care about you. It's all about me.
Debarl, Prof said something there important, and you had raised a question about the fake degrees or genuine degrees. The truth is, even a number of those so-called genuine degrees, they were achieved through fake means, because some of those people never attended classes, or they asked their friends to write papers for them. Now, Prof was talking about the moral compass of a country, and when we raise children and they see us glorifying shortcuts, today children who are doing exams are not the ones responsible for the cheating. It's the adults, and sometimes it's the parents who come literally the one to buy exams for their children. What are you teaching them? You are teaching that shortcut pays, that the only way to succeed in life is through shortcuts. And we glorify theft in this country. You have, let's say, a good professional running for civic ward as an MCA, understands their community, but they don't have a lot of money. Perhaps they're just on a bicycle. They will not get a vote. You have someone who's working in the county assembly, has stolen all the money they were supposed to build a feeder road, because he or she is coming with a gas guzzler. They think, well, now this is a person we should be voting for. We have all the priorities upside down. And now, as a country, we should go through some kind of self-reflection, really.
Yes.
We are at a place that is pretty bad, and as long as we keep glorifying ill-gotten wealth and shortcuts, this vice is going to continue. There has to be a price to pay for shortcuts, and it has to be high. We have to teach our children that, look, shortcuts do not pay, that easy money, it's never available, you have to work for it. But we've not been teaching that. Now, those who are not busy doing that, others might not be actively be encouraging that, but because of their lifestyle and how they go about their own life encourages actually people to do stuff like that. But finally, when a lot of people see the high and mighty get away with murder, when a lot of people see those people with power or with money, they commit crimes and they're not prosecuted, people are going to get tempted to do the same thing. So it's upon all of us in government, in the media, in the academia, and in business to actually set the standard, because no one else is coming to change Kenya, it's only us. And we seem to think that somehow there's going to be some foreign model that we're going to borrow, some messiah is going to come and save us. That's not going to happen. We have to do it ourselves.
Right. Let's hear from Olenadu.
Yeah, we are suffering from moral decay as a people, and I think
and this is a conversation we actually had with you last Friday,
exactly,
when we were looking at religion and society as well.
No.
And of course we said all the religious institutions that we do have, of course, they act as a moral conscience of society. But is this, the religious institutions also doing enough? Why the moral decadence that are now experiencing right now, the sexual mores that we're having? Not only look at what is happening in Kitui right now, 147 students who are pregnant and they're sitting for their exams. I mean, this is really telling, and this is the highest right now in the country, despite the fact that we had also another 10 there sitting for the KCP exams as well. Yeah. So, and you find most of the perpetrators of this evil is not even the fellow teenagers. It is school teachers.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. This is really appalling. So, has the church, has the mosque, has the temples, are they really doing enough in making sure that, yes, we have a conscience as a society that is not really seared, that is alive, that is living?
Actually, all of us, as the societies, because we belong to one faith or the other, we are under siege because of the mass information available out there. We have so many sources of information. Parents no longer control the level of information that flows to our kids, to our bedrooms and other places, and it's because of the social media, yes, largely. We are also failing as the parents of actually playing our roles in terms of really being there for the kids, to guide them and also provide the overall guidance in our families. In religious institutions, they are doing their part, but I think we need to do more. Because we are all of us, we are under this kind of terrible influence that we have been left to lament in all spheres of life, from the households to the pulpits. We are lamenting because we are not even understanding how do we deal with this problem at hand. I think time has come that we have again to relook at our way of life, to see how do we then can we actually try to go back to where we were, because honestly, as things stand now, we are terribly badly.
We're in bad shape.
Yeah, Debarl, I think that's a soul-searching question that you've asked, and the reflections by my colleagues here is quite revealing. I want to begin from one point to say that the moment you allow corruption to go unchecked in a country, corruption is a cancer. And as a cancer, it mutates, or they call it metastasis, whatever it is in medicine, I don't want to practice here, to go and can manifest in any way. It starts a corruption, but it shows up in education, it shows up in politics, it shows up in religion. What do we see now, even in churches? People steal money, they go to church, and the church gladly accepts it. And that tells you that the moral compass of the country is really at crossroads. And the only way we can rescue ourselves, if we, for instance, take the question of corruption and tackle it seriously, to root it out, that would have been a major victory. And that can help us to steer back to some kind of sanity.
All right. No, we don't.
Debarl, I like to think that ordinary Kenyans and most of us are looking forward to a country that we want, that we desire, that most of us mean well, to each other. But there is a decaying factor which is taking place. And unless it is checked, and I'd like to refer everyone to read 2 books and continue reading them. Read them to your children and your neighbors and everybody. One is Chunwa Chebe, Things Fall Apart. He described it very vividly. And the second one is Ngugi wa Thiong'o, or Decolonizing the Mind. Who are we? And where are we going as a country? And here's my point where I'm coming from, Debarl. It is okay for us to acquire foreign influence. It is okay for us to think differently. It is okay. But where we come from, our family setting, our school system, from preschool to primary to secondary to higher school, what is happening? Like Kanenje said, there are a lot of people, even professors, who does not read, who got their PhD somehow through quacks. And therefore they're quacks, professor. They're quack doctors. They're quack teachers. They're quack policemen. And these people are in our system. And our system allowed them to go through and reach where they're reaching. What does a little kid think when he watch these people? You know, drive nice cars, live in nice homes and everything. What do they think? And therefore, we need a checkup. We need reassessment of our system, of coming from community, coming from family level. The preachers who are quacks, there are too many of them.
Yes.
And whatever they're saying, you wonder if they're really religion. So why are you using the word religion? Why are you putting cross on your chest? Why are you pretending? But they're grabbing money. It is all about money. There is nothing else. So is that our value? Is this where we want to go? That's why this kind of man is able to get through the system, is able to get through the court system, is able to pretend, and is not caught. And the more we do this, the more we seriously begin to decay as a nation.
Right. We want to take a shorter break right now. When we circle back, we continue with the conversation. Do we need a self-evaluation as a country? Are we a sick nation as it is right now, that it's a dog-eat society, dog-eat-dog society currently, that we don't really care about one another, right? It is just about man's inhumanity to man, what is really ongoing in the country. Should we take a stock of where we are right now? Where are we coming from and where are we headed? As far as this also killings are concerned, every day we read about the killings, we read about also suicide as well. We'll continue with more stories on the other side of the break, so don't go away. When we come back, we continue with our discussion. Also, our numbers will be up momentarily for you to call in, ask questions. Let's converse as a nation and hear also what you have to say. So don't go away, much more coming up on the other side of the break. watching Standing on Gedi here on AM Live. We continue with our stories this morning. A police officer attached to a patrol police base in Joro, Nakuru County, killed himself after shooting his wife. The incident caught residents by surprise, since there were no signs of discord among the couple. And Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri has blamed incompetency among staff at National Cereals and Produce Board and stores that have outlived their usefulness as the cause of mismanagement and maize going bad in the NCPB stores. The CS informed a parliamentary committee that 67% of maize at NCPB stores were downgraded to substandard and fit for consumption, and almost 1 million bags of maize have gone bad and need to be disposed of immediately.
We are told 60% of this maize across the country cannot be milled.
More than 1.2 million bags of maize that are still in silos are discolored. We equally have some maize that were imported from Mexico. We have over 240,000 bags. And the maize also need to be disposed of immediately. You get a person who was recruited just as a clerk, has now risen to become a manager in the silo. Through natural attrition, not replacing, and therefore we have a challenge in management.
The price of 2,300 one CS, you can come up with whatever formula you have. Is not acceptable by the farmers in North Rift. Yes, we'd rather stay with our maize.
From matters food security to transport, the National Transport and Safety Authority has assured matatu operators that they have 4 days to comply with Michuki rules. NTSA gave the assurance during a meeting with industry stakeholders, among them matatu owners and SACCO officials, who decried police harassment in Sunday's premature crackdown. Matatu owners have pledged to comply with the rules.
Challenges ambazo tunapitia ni kwamba hatujui compliance inaangaliwa vipi. Kwa maana nafikiri kama gari imeenda inspection na umepewa sticker ya inspection ya kwamba umecomply, nafikiri hiyo ndio mwisho. Lakini sasa serikali wa polisi wakija na wanasema hatuja comply, inatuchanganya.
Tutaweza kusuluhisha hii janga la maafa barabarani sisi wote tukishikana mkono. We gari lako kama haitakuwa fulfill zile requirements za sheria, tafadhali tunaomba usikue kwa barabara. Vitu kama speed governor ndio zinamaliza watu. Madereva wako na switch, wanaenda wakiona polisi wanaweka on.
Wafuasi wetu wanaendelea kurekebisha makosa mahali iko, kwa maana wanataka wawe wako compliant. Hakuna mtu anapinga mambo ya compliance, wote wanaunga mkono. Kwa maana hatufurahii watu wakifariki barabarani, kwa maana biashara yetu si ya kuua watu.
Right, from also clerks who are managing silos, and of course we have that a tidy sum of monies that are going to waste because of maize which are going spoiled, to transport sector as well. There is a problem. And of course also need to grab a copy of the Standard this morning, how return of Michuki rules will hit you hard. It says this is a splash, and transport, that is what it's reading on top there. Commuters should prepare for tough times that might include matatu strikes, increased fares or arrest as police targets law breakers. This story is tucked away on page 4 of the Standard today. And this is also what you need to know. PSV owners of PSV, excluding taxis and car hire vehicles as well as commercial vehicles with tire weight exceeding 1, let me try and decrease that a bit so that you can see, with a tire weight exceeding 1 ton are required to fit their cars with speed governors and not exceed 80 kph. All right. Also, all public, commercials and private vehicles are to be fitted with seat belts. Prominently display notices on the inside informing passengers of the route details and fares during rush hour and off-peak Matatu and taxis are to be painted with consistent yellow band 150 millimeters wide, easily identifiable from 275 meters away. Also, owners of matatu or matatus who violate the rules will be liable to a fine of 500 shillings for each seatbelt unfitted and not meeting the required specifications. Also, on the driver can try and wide zoom out or zoom in a bit for you to see this. Just give me a moment. Doing it from my laptop. We're coming back to you just briefly, but I can be able to read that meanwhile. What it says, yeah, there we go. If you may just have that. Drivers and conductors, the crew are to be employed on a permanent salary and issued with badges provided by the Registrar of Motor Vehicles that identify them as PSV operators. Also, wear uniforms identifying them as public sector operatives. Drivers are expected to be retested after every 2 years. Now, each matatu and taxi will prominently display a postcard-sized photograph of the driver, capturing the head and shoulders and taken without a hat. On passengers, boarding overloaded matatus or not wearing a seatbelt will attract a maximum of 600 shillings or a prison term not exceeding 2 months or both. So beware. Boarding overloaded matatus or not wearing a seatbelt will attract a maximum fine of 600 shillings or a prison term not exceeding 2 months or both. And this happens mostly in the up country areas where we get also matatus overloaded, and yeah, they pass through the roadblocks. And we're talking about a dog eats dog society. Dog eat society from the silos, where we can actually store maize which are, are rotten and still give it to the public, right? They have aflatoxins. We still dish it out to the public. We come to the also public sector. We'll come going really gung-ho on this, but along the way, next year, this time, things might have tapered off as well. So why are we blowing hot and cold when it comes to, enforcing these rules? Let's hear from Dr. Hassan Khanenje.
Well, it happens when people forget about meritocracy and they celebrate mediocrity. And we do that, and we actually reward mediocrity in this country. Now, of course, the legal argument with regard to the enforcement of the Michuki rules, and what I'm hoping is that the ministry and departments concerned are going to make sure they do not suffer the same fate like way back in 2005 in the court of law, that they use the right process in ensuring that actually these Michuki rules are going to stick. But what is more important than Michuki rules is there's a culture here. And there are many times I've been through a near miss to be hit by an oncoming matatu. Why? Because they're running a red light and I thought it was a green light. And at the same time, you'll have 2 traffic police officers standing right there looking at them. So enforcement is actually important. But when you say it is known, even any visitor who has visited Kenya from abroad, they know how notorious our matatus are, even compared to the rest of the region. We are pretty bad. They stink. And I don't think government should relent on this. They should actually go harsher. And drivers who violate, or owners of those vehicles who violate the rules, their license should be suspended, perhaps for several years. These small fines are not sufficient. People should be banned from being on the road permanently, if not perhaps 5 years. Because remember way back in 2003, of course we suffered a little bit, but just for the first few weeks. But things started actually getting back into place. Now, up country, of course there's a different dynamic, because a lot of times there's even no law enforcement out there. But if we are consistent in enforcing these rules, even up country, because most of people who live in Nairobi know that not too long ago, you'll have a matatu that is supposed to be carrying 11 people, actually having almost 30 people in it. Some of the buses, like a recent accident along Nairobi, Kisumu, Kericho Road, was caused in part because of lack of enforcement of these rules. So this should not be an option. It shouldn't even be debatable. I think the government should get tougher, but should also hold the police and NTSA a lot more accountable. And NTSA should enforce their rules and should not compromise. We know the associations, they're going to fight it. They're going to be strike, that is fine. But I think this is a price that Kenyans are willing to pay to restore order in the public transport sector.
All right, but also we have a niggling worry when it comes to the entire system of the traffic police as well, because we understand it's not only just the man who's collecting that particular bribe on the ground, but this actually is a whole chain that goes way up to, the upper reaches of command within the system itself, that we have also police officers who own these matatus. So we have, of course, interests in the sector itself. So how are we also putting the men who are supposed to be, overseeing and enforcing these rules, and the people who are actually, at the same time, they're the same people who are compromising the system and gaming the system? Olenado.
Yeah, I think the key word here is actually corruption. Because within the industry, the transport industry, if your vehicle is well maintained and it has everything that is required, it's expensive to do so. But at least the policeman on the road must get a certain something to charge you, something to get from you, because they'll create a problem even where there is no problem. That one are discouraged. That one discourages players in the industry from actually fixing their vehicles, because even if you fix the vehicles, you can still be charged. You have still to pay for something.
Yes.
So that has created that some elements of reluctance within the industry that, even if I do whatever I want to do, it will not be sufficient for me to be free on the road. We need to talk about the culture that is inherent in the Kenyan people. I don't know what is actually our problem. That everything that we do, we are just being selfish, because everyone in every place that he sits in an office that he occupies, he have to create a way of getting free money instead of actually giving service to the people. So this is where, in my view, lies the problem in the transport industry.
Right, Ambassador.
Debarl, you asked the question earlier on that why are we plowing hot and cold? Starting, for instance, with the Michuki rules. When these rules were here, we were all hot on it, and we saw the good results of it. What happened? We faded away. And that brings me to another situation where, for instance, if you see what has happened with the maize, and the Prof was saying, food security is linked with our health, and this is a security issue actually. I was so saddened to see the president looking literally helpless when he was in Western Kenya, challenging his cabinet that he wanted results. But you know why we blow hot and cold? What happened is that after such declaration, former commission, called people to testify, like what is happening in parliament. Time plays out. The story is forgotten. You move on. I mean, it's so sad when you saw, for instance, when the examinations were going on this time, the whole nation was mobilized. And you would have thought that we were under invasion. Bringing police out, creating a command post to make sure no cheating takes place. Isn't that an example of what we could even try to do in the case of, say, corruption? And why are we playing hot and cold? It's because sometimes when we start this exercise, it is the small man. If it is Debarl, you can round him up, put him in jail, throw him away. But the moment you get close, to centers of power, and you see that you are going to get this big fish, then you start to take slower steps, and the story is forgotten away. So, as long as we continue to have sacred cows, that's why you end up with a clerk. How does this clerk end up with this big position? It is because somebody somewhere there has called to say so and so should assume this role. So that is the sick society, and it boils down to what Orikina said. It has to do with corruption, and if we are not serious with this war of corruption, we'll be here talking about it just as we're doing now.
All right. Let's hear from Professor Naomi Damba.
Debarl, let's get to the bottom of this issue. There was once a time when there were buses here in the city of Nairobi that ran from morning to evening. They were clean, there was order and everything. That bus, a public bus, vanished. If you go from major city to major city, whether it's Tokyo, whether it's London, whether it's Los Angeles, whether it's New York, there is public transportation system run side and side with private transportation system. There is room for everyone. I support private sector development, and I would like to see a burgeoning private sector, but the one that follow law and order. So what is happening here is cartel has captured the whole system, city by city, from Nairobi to Mombasa to Kisumu to Eldoret to everywhere. And the excuse me, cartel is running our country. And all kind of criminal elements comes with that cartel. These are people who have no objective of saving any human life except making money. You look at the nature of this vehicle, you look at the state of where they are. These vehicles should not be running on the road. Yet they run on the road, yes, they kill people, yet we take people to court and continue. So what is it we are trying to do? We need to develop an effective metropolitan transportation system, which is publicly funded, publicly managed, and as order. And then can be supplemented, there's room enough to supplement with this private transportation system. But they have to follow order. And there is no question about it, there's no debate, there is not if and but. We need to do it, and we have the ability as Kenyans to do that.
All right, we want to also hear from our viewers who are watching this morning, and they're hanging online this morning just to talk to us about the current of society that we live in right now. A dog-eat-dog society, a man's inhumanity to man. We cross over now to Daniel from Kericho, who is calling this morning. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, you have a contribution this morning.
I'm calling from Kericho.
Yes, thank you.
The thing that surprised me was an accident early night for that. I was expecting at least the senior most person angekuja ni Mr. President. Or the CS for transport, Mr. Masharia.
Yes.
To just come even and sit at the rail of that road. But one day they were blaming, all of them, they were blaming police at night. How many police officers are you expected to be on the road? And then, funny enough, bali hiyo gari ilikuwa kupitia, kulikuwa na a lot of corners, very sharp. In fact, the car was almost passing through the path rail. You saw that it happened, it slipped, it rolled several times. Or the same thing. At times, we normally blame police for everything, but the people in charge, that is the minister, at times they are not doing their work, especially in terms of drugs. But all the blame, 90% police they are taking pride. And then number two,
yes,
most of the roads in Kenya, especially that goes to the villages, they are not in good, they are in bad state. And then how do you expect that the people will bail themselves, yet there are very few vehicles? Some of the rules might not be applicable in our country, because, and then most of the issues, they target the lower class. In fact, the people who are complaining are the well-capable, those who have cars, they can bail themselves, and the lower class are the victim. Right now, on Monday, if you go to the road, you will see the common man is not suffering. Even those people who are coming from, who are going to the market or going to the work, if you try and study their general income,
thank you.
It is the lower class.
Thank you, Daniel there from Kericho. Of course, the blame storming will go on. It will be the police. Why don't we have the people from the upper reaches of government also taking on responsibility as well? And also he's questioning the applicability of these rules as well. But let's hear also from James, who is calling from Kisumu, hanging on the line. Good morning, James.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning to you.
This is called James Eliud Odhiambo, retired teacher.
Yes, thank you.
All of us live in Kenya.
Yes.
It raises eyebrows that when it comes to December, every other year, or every other cycle of the year, the police are on the roads, very heavily present, cracking down on matatus. Why is it December? Why is it not any other time of the year?
Yes.
You get that point?
Yeah, we do.
It makes me speculate that the police want to raise money for this and that. Even if they want to raise money for their children, the way I wish to think to take to school, I don't know whether I'm becoming outrageous in making such remarks. Secondly,
yes,
if you look at the issue of roadblocks in Kenya here, I've shouted over this through some of the, the media in this country. You will get that Nyanza has a preponderantly high number of roadblocks. But I'll tell you for free that between Kisumu and Eldoret, there is only one roadblock, and you get it somewhere around Kapsabet. This skewed management by the police is not, does not make me happy. Thirdly, I want to talk about fares.
Yes.
Matatu fares. When you come to Matatu fares, we are now hearing and getting it from the print media that there will be fare for, normal hours and the peak hours. Distances do not increase because there is something called peak hours. Let us be honest with ourselves and do things, rather, in a sober way.
Yes.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm hearing.
So I want you to observe this.
Yes.
Come January, after January, when school fees has been paid by all manner of classes of society, including the poor like me. Okay? Yes. From March there up to round about December, again, you will hear nothing of these things.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
And please observe that in all the roadblocks in Nyanza here, Luo Nyanza particularly,
yes,
policemen are there after every 5 kilometers roadblock. Na pesa inachukuliwa. And this is, an open secret.
Right. Thank you, James. Calling from Kisumu, really frustrated there. We have Kimani calling from Nairobi. Good morning, Kimani.
Morning, Debarl. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
I'm Kimani Wairimu, all the way from Mumias, but currently in Nairobi.
Yes.
That is easily.
Okay.
Okay. To me, it is an embarrassment when we see our people dying.
Yes.
On the roads after road carnages that could be managed by our police, men and women, and other relevant authorities. Okay. Of late, we lost about 56 people from where I come from. That is Western.
Yes. Now,
currently, as we speak, a tractor that was ferrying sugarcane in Western, that is in Bukaya, Mumias West.
Yes. Yes.
Crashed 2 people to death. We are still mourning the 56, and there is yet another 2 funerals in a village, a very small village.
Yes.
What measures have the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure made to curb these road carnages? Number 2, we have local universities in this country producing engineers every year. And whenever we want to construct a road, whether it is a highway or an ordinary road, we employ engineers from a foreign country who are prisoners of their own country, but brought to this country to make roads and bridges. I don't want to mention that country.
Yes.
But they make these roads with a lot of discouragement. I don't know how I can term it, but when you are a prisoner and you are supposed to do something, you do it with a lot of
recklessness.
With a lot of okay.
Right, we get the point. Thank you.
Okay, I think you have got my point.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Kimani. We've gotten your point, and of course, those are just sentiments from our viewers who are watching this morning. What do you have to say? Are we living in a dog society? Man's inhumanity to man in Kenya? Have we reached that particular point where the sanctity of life does not really matter as long as I'm making my money? Right, it doesn't matter about morals or the moral decadence that we are in as a country right now. Let's just hear from our panelists, even as we're winding up on this, and we try and see what is happening also internationally briefly. We can begin with you, Dr. Hassan Khanenja. And interestingly, even as we're winding up, maybe I should bring to the fore also this particular editorial cartoon that Gado had drawn recently in light of the examinations that is ongoing. And it is also quite consternating that we had this, but this is actually a lift-off from a textbook that is in schools right now, having been approved by Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. And you can just read the details. Right? Read the essay below and write the moral of the story. Teachers and learners are cheering. I saw a helicopter. It was flying low. Our leader, we shouted. It was our member of parliament. He travels in a plane. It belongs to him. The helicopter landed at our school playground. 3 big cars arrived in our compound. They too belonged to him. His wife waved at us. He had golden rings in her hand. We don't know how our leader acquired his wealth, but who cares? We cheered on.
You know, literature generally and writing, and as Professor did allude to, things fall apart and decolonizing the mind. Sometimes it communicates a lot of ills in a very satirical and sarcastic way. Because I don't think it's meant to glorify what is happening, but it's satirizing and just is a form of sarcasm. It just goes to show where we are right now as a country. Now, in response to, you know, the 2 callers, or let's attempt to respond to them. When it comes to what the ministry is doing with regard to that, I think that is a question that is better addressed to them. I'm sure they're watching the TV. Perhaps next time, Debarl, when you have a government official of the ministry, they may be better situated to opposition to respond to that question. Now, yes, a country that a caller doesn't want to name, we kind of know, I think, what he's talking about. But I think the ongoing infrastructure, projects, part of it also depends with the kind of arrangement, for instance, the government had with the person who's going to do the funding. But at the same time, of course, there have been concerns even the construction of the SGR that there were very, very few Kenyan engineers and who've been trained here, and perhaps that is something that should be looked into especially when you're trying to negotiate those bilateral arrangements with the donor country. Now, with regard to the number of roadblocks, it's missing roadblocks in some parts and then in the other parts being too many, it is true that some roads are not sufficiently manned. Perhaps NTSA and the police, traffic police may explain that better. But whether they're manned or not, one thing that is consistent is that they're not really going far enough in trying to reduce these accidents anyway. And part of the problem is because even if a vehicle is defective, it's not the degree of defectiveness, is the size of the bribe that sometimes you're going to give that's going to determine whether or not you're going to continue. And so as long as we cannot get rid of these vices, especially with regard to our law enforcement officials and traffic police being compromised to allow overloaded vehicles to go, lorries which are carrying really things they shouldn't be carrying in terms of weight, the problems are not going to go away. So, manning the roads or roadblocks is one thing, but sometimes those roadblocks are actually just used as a tool for extorting money, from the public or from the public transport vehicles, and including private vehicles. Now, there's been something else which I don't even think is in law. Sometimes you have your car is looking perfectly fine, and you stop, you ask 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and say, but there's a scratch here. How is the scratch related to actually law enforcement? It's a private vehicle. So, as government, I think that is something that also should look into and address. But with regard to manning roads, it's true they have to be sufficiently manned, but that is not the solution. We need, first of all, to enforce the existing rules in the book, which are there, which we're not enforcing at all. If we enforce them, we will not need our police officers to be everywhere. They actually should be fighting crime in so many places.
Right, thank you. Olenadu.
Yeah, just to respond directly to Daniel and also comments of James from Kisumu. It's actually, in my view, it's not about the police.
Yes.
It's only that the police are law enforcers. They are the ones to enforce the law. Otherwise, nobody, no Kenyan, because the police officers are actually our sons, they are our brothers, they are our sisters, and they are our family members. So in one way or the other, we have to mention them because of the fact that they are the ones who are supposed to enforce the law. Secondly, there was a discussion in this country sometimes back about where do traffic police belong. At the moment, they are part of the police. There was a discussion whether there is need to shift the traffic police department to the Ministry of Transport, so that the Ministry of Transport should not be crying foul that the enforcement of the laws that they pass are being undermined by another ministry. And I don't know how far that went, because at one point the national NTSA, to some extent, created their own enforcement arm, but sometimes back after the accidents, it was also disbanded, and they were taken back to the policy, though they are now in charge of policy but not implementation. These are the things that I think as a country we need to really debate about what is the best way forward in terms of handling issues to do with the traffic and related offenses in the country, whether we still need to run 2-3 parallel structures of government doing the same work, or we just need to centralize them and being managed from one center, so that if we have to hold the CS of public works, whatever, to account, then he accounts, because the entire chain falls under his ministry. But at the moment, it doesn't. We have different ministries in charge of the whole sector.
All right, let's hear from Ambassador briefly.
Staying with this story about accidents, it's obvious, and from the callers, and responding to one who said, "Why blaming the police?" I want to agree in a way that there is an over-focus on the police, but they happen to be, standing at the front line in terms of law enforcement. But when accidents occur, there are a number of variables that one should look at. It has got to do with the road itself, it has got to do with the weather, it has got to do with the driver, it has got to do with, even the technology that is being used. But and if you look at where accidents occur, are we saying that all accidents are occurring where there are bad roads? No. There are accidents which occur in very good areas. I mean, you have seen in the city here, matatus cram into some vehicle and all that. There is also a problem with the drivers, because the drivers are over speeding, or there is pressure from their owners who tell them that, look, I want you to bring back to me maybe 5,000 a day. It doesn't matter what you make. So the driver is working crazy to raise maybe 7,000 so that he would retire 5,000 to the owner, keep 2,000. So there is all sorts of vices, and that has also got to do with money society. So there are all sorts of vices on the road, and I think it's a multi-sectoral issue. It cannot be solved by police alone, but police tend to perpetuate it in a way, because as Oleg was saying earlier on, you come with a good car, but they still want to extract something from you. You come with a defective car, you get away with it.
Thank you.
Now that creates a problem.
Yeah. Lastly, Professor Nomi Damba.
Debarl, this is an impact of corruption, which breed cartel, which create the kind of situation we have. I think Daniel talked about engineers that we are producing that are not able to construct roads. They are not able to construct houses. They construct houses that are falling apart. The most unfortunate thing, my countrymen, is that University of Nairobi was supposed to be engineering school, and Kampala was supposed to be medicine, and Dar es Salaam was supposed to be law at the time that we got independent. And now, several years later, we have produced more engineers and we have produced more architects. And I think the caller is asking, where are these people? And what has happened? So the caller is right. Okay. Now, what happened to these people? It is simply corruption and shortcuts, which lead to the kind of situations we have. And they don't need to create any more laws. There are too many. Muchuki enforced them, and there was a one man that did that, and it's on record. And when Muchuki passed away, those guys are back to business as usual. That should not happen in our system. both enforcement, both lawmakers, the executive, the judiciary must work consistently to make sure that this country don't come apart.
Right, and of course, even as we're talking about the engineers, we need to know that I think for the longest protracted time, we've had unregistered engineers who are coming freshly from universities because the engineer registering board also has, its own cartels. Yeah, that they want to be actually in the system and not really drop even young engineers. And it's all about, also gaming the system as well, until there was actually a Supreme Court ruling in this regard. And then they came full steam ahead. I think that was in September, that yes, they have 60 days for the unregistered engineering students also to be dropped in as well. That is a niggling worry, yeah, because we have a few people who are managing this system, and all these contracts are going to few engineers as well. So it was all about protectionism at the end of the day. But right now we want to see what is happening, of course, also internationally. Rwanda is like a prison with Paul Kagame, its imperious warden. Well, these are the words of Diane Rwigara, a young politician who sought to challenge for the presidency and whose treason trial begins today. The 37-year-old, who was released on bail in October, struck a defiant tone speaking ahead of a trial for treason. Insurrect Victoria Ingabire, another woman who sought to run for the presidency in 2010, was blocked from competing. Arrested, tried and spent 6 years in jail before her release in September. Other politicians, dissidents abroad, have been assassinated, abducted or threatened. Rwigara believes her own father, Asina Paul, who died in 2015 through a car crash in Rwanda, may have been the victim of a political murder after he fell out with Kagame.
I was not that surprised.
of the men that were, yes, taken to, of course, clean up. They were called the cleanup team to arrest evidence of journalist Jamal Khashoggi's killing a week ago after he disappeared. This comes to the fore, and of course...
At least that's what they thought. They even had a body double to disguise as someone who actually walked away.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the days for a thief, as we say in Swahili, is 40 days. And I think MBS days are numbered today. I don't think it's going to survive for much longer unless Trump decides to protect him one or another. Now, if he loses Congress tonight, chances are, yes, there are going to be sanctions against Saudi Arabia.
Sanctions against Saudi Arabia. We know that sanction also has been imposed on Iran, and we can see now they're trying to diversify with the nuclear reactors now, because maybe this will be the blowbacks of this particular incident. Maybe people will actually not really buy their oil. The economy will tank with this, so the ripple effect will be extensive. Let's hear from Olenadu.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, as my brother Dr. Arias has just mentioned, that the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and in most of the countries that are actually governed through in a kind of the kingdoms, let me just use that term, have some very strange ways of managing dissent in their countries. And according to other reports, that Jamal himself was somehow close to the kingdom for quite a while. I was doing the errands and kind of stuff. So I think his moving to US became a threat, because he was able to maybe share the inside stories of the kingdom, which of course the kingdom was not was comfortable with. And I think that is actually what caused his killing. And it's unfortunate.
So he was actually in the inner sanctum of
yes,
the crown prince's court. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
He was.
Okay,
So I think
he had a lot of information.
Exactly. Okay. So his defection to US became a threat in terms of the level of information he's going to share outside there, and now he became a marked person. The saddest part of it is to have to carry out this kind of heinous act. There is no better place to do it anyway, but I think it is worse when it is done in a government institution, an institution that is supposed to protect the citizens of that particular country. So you go there looking for the service, but you end up actually being eliminated or killed in a such horrible manner, according to the reports that we read. This killing also in my view, may change the whole geopolitics of the Middle East, because there are going to be rearrangements of new allies in the Middle East, and you have actually just seen what made the ends of what's happening. You have seen for the last few days, the visit of the Israeli premier to Oman, and there are a number of things that are going to happen. And Iran and Russia, again, role in Syria is another factor that may further complicate this. So when you look at it, maybe based on the evening's outcome of the Congress voting, which I hear that they have already, the sanctions may actually be an option for Saudi at the moment, will complicate, in my view, the entire geopolitics, because there are now going to be new realignment in the so-called proxy wars in the Middle East, because people are going to change to shift their allegiance to other new partners and see how they can survive in the long run.
Right, Ambassador.
A friend of mine keeps on reminding me that statecraft is treachery, and this is where you see, for lack of a better word, corruption at the highest level in global affairs.
Yes.
As Hassan said, this is a poorly executed plot, but unfortunately there is no effort to follow it up through, because it's only Turkey that is pursuing it. And Turkey, I've seen some commentaries in the USA, well, Turkey is pursuing it for its own interest because of what has been said,
yes,
geopolitics in the region. Unfortunately, the US, which could have helped in this matter, we are looking at the monetary aspect of it, the trade that they have, the sales that are already concluded. They are not going to follow it up through. But the outcome of elections tonight of the US is going to complicate Trump's life, because as things stand right now, he is likely, or he has lost the House. And if he has lost the House, there are going to be all sorts of investigations that are going to be mounted by the House. And his regime is now going to be, just building firewalls to be able to retain power until he ends his term. And so this is, you're going to see very interesting. And of course, the biggest challenge he has now, he has just imposed sanctions against Iran, taking off almost 4 billion barrels of the global market. And you're going to see a reaction, because Europe is not interested. He has exempted some countries like India and the rest. So we are in interesting times, but unfortunately for Khashoggi, it's going to be a forgotten story by time.
Right. Let's hear from Professor Naomi Damba finally.
Debarl, my colleagues are right. I think this is the beginning of the end of influence of the Saud family. The truth is going to be open, come out. There was no question of premeditated attack and killing of Khashoggi. But there is much more to it than that. I think that the killers thought they will get away with it because of their connection to Trump and the trend that the world was taking, particularly in the Middle East. This is going to be A, short-sighted, and 2, tragedy for the Saudi Arabia role in protecting the holy site of Islam and being the pillar of Islam. Then there is a major question which is going to emerge tonight as the Democrat take over Congress and significant influence in the governor's races, very close, narrow, probably, of the Senate control. That is going to enforce a lot of investigation to further find out what exactly happened, open up Saudi Arabia, and degrade it significantly. And I think that Iran and Russia, of course, will come on top. Then you will see realignment of Turkey.
Thank you.
Very clear.
Right. I'll be remiss if I don't read also some of your reactions on Twitter. John Githanga is saying, yes, the moral compass in this country is at a crossroads. Bad governance, weak judiciary, and compromised spiritual leadership is to blame for all this mess. Also, we have economist Joe, the greatest impediment to the enforcement of Ichuki rules is lack of goodwill among the police force. Yesterday in Nakuru, police was collecting money as usual, caring less about seatbelts, driver's uniform and license. We have also Huntington Mushera said, totally in agreement with Hassan's sentiments. These two bodies have become accomplices in the vices within the Matatu sectors. Also, we have Charles Ndungu saying, hi guys, I wonder so much. Recently, you introduced new buses with standing passengers. How will the standing passengers will be treated by the law for not wearing belts? Please, Debarl. Then we have also Kanyi Gioko saying, the Kenya of the 70s had very good dependable system. Garbage collection worked. Transport, public transport was great. 999 responded, etc, etc. And also, lastly, Samuel Orut was saying, citizens must know it is their sovereign right to arrest a person who has committed crime or they think is involved in a crime. If you think the police or whoever is covering or ignoring failure to expose a citizen, you're part to those abiding crime. And of course, also as we're leaving right now, we leave you with this particular editorial cartoon. I don't know what will be the projection of our panelists as far as the midterm election is concerned. This is in the Star today, and Trump is going, of course, or maybe the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans will be facing this. Trump pulls out of Iraq nuclear deal. Trump immigration row. Trump denies using word shithole. Trump discover all his own Russia links. Trump. That is surrounding the ballot box today. Right, thank you for your valued company. My name is Debarl Inea. I want to thank our panelists as well this morning. We want to begin with Hassan Olenadu, who is the Deputy Chair of SUPCAM and also a Director of Strategy and Partnership. Dr. Hassan Khanenje, also Director at the Horn Institute. Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is the former Deputy Chair of African Union and also Chairman of the Trustmark East Africa. And finally, Professor Naomi Demba, who is Trademark East Africa, and Naomi Demba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KCA University and also a foreign expert and defense expert as well, foreign policy expert. Right, a mouthful for me, but thank you for your valued company. My name is Debarl Inea.